Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Mars, the host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. Our background is a little bit different today. I'm sitting in a chair. You know why? Because I'm tired. Today I woke up and I didn't just feel 54. I felt 54 on the way to 55. So I figured, hey, it doesn't hurt me to sit up here and just have a rest and be able to talk about our subject matter. But before we get to that, I hope that all of you had a wonderful day. You know how Tuesdays could be in between that Monday and Wednesday. That Tuesday can be a little long, but I'm hoping that you weathered the storm and you made it to the Shout Out Show, and we appreciate you for that. Okay, so some quick notes. Brothers and sisters. I got a really nice note yesterday about our show on the economy, talking about inflation. Yes, I think we do need to go ahead and revisit that. That will be an issue that's going to be reoccurring. But in speaking to Satana, the consultant producer for the Shout Out Show, we decided we want to actually create a series of workshops that we're going to do here on the Shout Out Show, whereby people can join in and we can talk and have a little bit of a longer discussion, a little bit more long-ranging, broader discussion about, money, how we save money, finance. We're probably even going to bring back, we hope we can get her back, Miss Maxine BK Esquire from BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. Okay. So just some things I just want to throw out there before we get into our subject matter. As well, I want to give a shout out to some people, some old school people. I thought of them today. My first class from Clark Street School in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I know you guys are old and crusty, but for those who are in the vicinity of my voice, or at least if you're not in the vicinity of my voice, you're in the vicinity of my dua. I was thinking of you guys today, and I pray that all of you are doing well wherever you are, and Allah protect you and guide you and your families, because you're old men now. All right, so let's get to it, brothers and sisters. As it is, I'm an entertainment guy, and as it is, you guys like entertainment. So I was going through some things today, and I came across an op-ed in the Washington Post by one woman named Rana Ayub. Her name was Rana Ayub. And the title was basically what I have: what should we be worried about a popular anti-Muslim film in India? Now, of course, I'm going to stop before I try to label something anti-Muslim. I put the title there. But I left the title there because here in America, we do deal with aspects of anti-Muslim racism here in America, which stems, of course, from anti-Black racism, but that's probably a whole nother conversation. We'll get to that later in the show, hopefully, inshallah. But the idea was the timing of the film. The politics of India, in some regard, has shifted. And let's not be naive here. The politics in India between Hindus and Muslims has been complicated going a long way back. Complicated by British rule, but it's been complicated a long way back. So we can't say that. And I'm going to be the first one to tell you that I'm not a scholar on politics that goes back to the 1930s and the 1920s. I'm not that. But if you look at politics under the present Prime Minister Modi, there are some questions to be said. Meaning, what is the modus operandi for how you deal with Muslims in a space where they are considered a minority culture, minority religion, and Hinduism is the large religion. Now, most of us say, well, Hinduism and Muslim, they do have some variations, some relationships. But I always say when it comes to power, it seems that things change. When people feel as though I have power to change the course of how you do things or how you exist or how you express yourself, there's always that danger. And this has been a long-running situation since Modi took office. Trump and Modi got along and things like that. And you have a whole lot of interstitial stuff you don't need to go into. There's this film, brothers and sisters. It's called Suryavashi. I'm probably saying it wrong. Suryavashi. Now, I read of course, I had to read the whole opinion thing. And Sister Ayub had some very, very strong opinions about this film being anti-Muslim. And she expanded on why she thought it was. And to my surprise, brothers and sisters, I was on the internet trying to look, I'm cheap. I'm cheap. I'm not trying to go see the movie. I'm trying to see who bootlegged the movie, and then I could watch it and I could tell you what was in it. So here I am on YouTube trying to find illegal downloads and stuff like that. I don't find anything. I find the trailer. Now, in watching the trailer, brothers and sisters, I say something to myself all the time, which is if a story is effectively told, you don't necessarily have to know the language it's told in. Let me say it again. If the story is effectively told, you don't necessarily have to necessarily speak the language that is told in. You can look and understand body movements, and you can look at the history of movement and what a community looks like, what it used to look like, simply sometimes by the terror in the actor's face. You can tell who's a good guy, who's a bad guy, who's a bad guy, who's a good guy, and things like that. The relevance now, brothers and sisters, is it's here in the United States. Here in the United States. Not that it wasn't an issue over in India, but in the United States, it scared me because I was looking for this Suryavashi. You put the name in, Suryavashi, you put the name in, and it came up that at a theater near me, it was playing. And where I stay is not predominantly Indian, Pakistani, or even Muslim. But somehow it's got shelf space at the local theater. We're going to talk about it. We're going to ask the question, should we be worried about an anti-Muslim film from India here in the United States? Let's get started, Satana. It's the Shout Out Show. And we are back. Before we get started, we've got a weather alert from my good sister Janice Tuff out in Seattle, Washington. She's letting us know that it is raining out there and they are dealing and experiencing some flooding out there. So, Sister Janice, we're going to make sure that we make dua for you and we pray that everybody out there in Washington State, our brothers and sisters, are safe. I don't know if people know about when you get flooding and mudslides and things like that, but it could be a very, very precarious situation. So, I'm putting you right on top of the dua list from the Shout Out Show. We hope that you're doing well. Let us know. Don't sit there and deal with it yourself. Let us know and keep in touch with us on how it's going. You know how to reach me too. So dua's up. Thank you so much for letting us know. Next up, we got Sister Ree. Sister Ree, how you doing? What's a show? What's a Shout Out Show without Sister Ree? We appreciate you coming on the show always and your support. And I want to say your support and your dedication, your devotion to the show. It is unparalleled. We appreciate you. We love you. And thank you so much. Peace and blessings to you, your husband, and your son. Big shout out to Sister Ree. Next up, we got Johnny L. Thomas, better known as JT to me, but I guess JT to you right now, brothers and sisters. Thanks so much for tuning in, little brother. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Having you on the show just kind of cuts down the time we don't get to spend together in person, but this has been a great opportunity. I appreciate you supporting your big brother in his dreams. Thank you so much. Shout out to the family, Yolanda, Miss Maisie, the Thomas girls, as well as the Thomas boys. Preacher Mars, send love to my little brother. Next up, we got brother Altaf Rashid, my main man, Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down, never late. Comes on the Shout Out Show. He's the official ambassador of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. Also, what did I say, man? That you come all the time and all of that. We just appreciate you. Everybody that I've mentioned today is Shout Out Show royalty, the Shout Out Show family. I mean, they come on the show, they contribute, and we just appreciate them. All right. Altaf, thank you so much. Next up, what's the show without a consultant producer? I'll tell you what it is. It's a bad show because I won't be able to do what I need to do. No, shout out to Sister Zatanna who's doing gangbusters in terms of production. You guys will know, when you put these shows together, a lot of times when you start out on your own, it's really, really bad. And what you need is somebody who goes, yeah, it's really, really bad. And you talk about how it gets better. And it becomes a bit of a progression, a bit of a challenge. And Sister Satana has been there from the beginning, making sure that this thing flows, And I always say, well, the term is teamwork makes the dream work. Yes, but cooperation is a statement, and I mean that cooperation is a statement. When you have partners and people that you're working with, you're not in competition with them. The only competition is how you make the product better. You can't help but win, brothers and sisters. You can't help but win. So shout out to Sister Satana. Okay, let's get to our note today, brothers and sisters. The subject that we're going to talk about is, it was a foreign film. It's over in India. It's very, very popular. I pulled up this trailer. It said over 1 million views, over 100 million views. And you begin to look at it and you go, well, 100 million views means 100 million impressions. And radio say 100 million spins. 100 million spins means that people have heard that song 100 million times. It may not be 100 million individuals, but somewhere along the line, it's been digested 100 million opportunities. Okay, that's fine. The scope of it is the content of the film. Now, you know me. I'm a comedian. Bollywood is not my game. I always used to marvel at Bollywood. Some people love Bollywood. I'm not banging on Bollywood. But Bollywood has a problem. Bollywood has a problem because that industry has, and Bollywood, in case you didn't know, used to be dominated by Muslims. But now it's turned into a machine that people are saying is now propaganda. Propaganda against Muslims or anti-Muslim behavior in India. And you got to understand, too, before I even go to that, India has a caste system. America has this, but India has a caste system. According to color and things like that, they have the Dalits. I mean, if this is ground zero, then the Dalits are underneath that. I mean, we have that type of activity going on while we're even talking about this film. But when I watched the film, and I looked at body language and how things were presented, particularly in a trailer, because the trailer is meant to entice you. It's meant to garner your interest about the film. Instead of you watching the whole film, they're trying to get you to buy into the film, have an emotional reaction for maybe 2 minutes. Now, the first thing I noticed about this trailer is it is not 2 minutes. This trailer is 4 minutes. I'm like, hey, it's your thing. I'm like the Ozzy Brothers. It's your thing. But my point is, why is it 4 minutes? And then my other point was, why was it here in the United States? Clearly, this film in India, where it's being shown and projected and being praised as very, very extremely popular, it's divisive. It's very, very divisive. My thing was, if it's so divisive, how did it make its way here to the United States? Do we even need any more division? I think we have the whole idea of being divisive down pat. Literally, I looked at this and I was like, they don't even have shelf space for what this thing is trying to do. We're dealing with unemployment. We're dealing with the big lie. We're dealing with all these things. And here comes this film. For those of us that are old enough, we remember the beginning of Islamophobia. When I say the beginning of Islamophobia, I mean it was a very, very concerted effort to twist and contort the image of Muslims in America. Let me be even more specific. More so than to twist and contort the image of Muslims in America, it was immigrant Muslims in America. It was also meant to make sure that we did not remember the memory and progress and accomplishments and contributions of Muslims in America before 1960. So in a way, this film has the potential to raise ire here in the United States to the point that we forget those who don't even look like those who are in the film. They look like me. Yeah, they look like me. They look like Satana. They look like Reed. They look like people who have been here but have been long ignored. Let me break this down to you. I'm going to show you this trailer. Satana, we're going to probably give it about 2 minutes, and I'm going to cut it off. But I want you with a very, very keen eye, a creative eye, to look at what's being presented on screen. You don't have to speak English. Ironically, they have Arabic subtitles, which means at some point in the world is being shown to people who read Arabic, which is interesting that you would show a film that's somewhat anti-Muslim. But I'm thinking You know how I think? I'm like, it's not being shown that so much to people anti-Muslim, but you put Arabic on it, it reinforces Islam has something to do with the villains in this character, the villains in this film. So, Satana, can we go ahead and pop that in real quick?
मुंबई हिंदुस्तान का दिल और हिंदुस्तान के इस दिल ने आज तक कई बार सहे। इसकी शुरुआत हुई थी 1993 सीरियल बम ब्लास्ट से, फिर 2002 बस ब्लास्ट, 2006 ट्रेन ब्लास्ट और 2008 ताज 26/11। मगर मुंबई पर उनका सबसे बड़ा वार अब भी होना बाकी था, और इस वार को रोकने की जिम्मेदारी थी मुंबई एंटी टेररिज्म स्क्वाड के एक योद्धा की, सूर्यवंशी।
मुंबई पुलिस पासपोर्ट पे रिलीजन देखकर गोली नहीं चलाती, क्रिमिनल रिकॉर्ड देखकर ठोकती है। I have been shot. हमारी इंटेलिजेंस के हिसाब से तुम्हारी तरह 40 लोग और हैं जो लश्कर के स्लीपर सेल बनकर हिंदुस्तान में सालों से रह रहे हैं।
अभी उनका वक्त आया नहीं, जब वक्त आएगा तुम्हें उन्हें ढूंढने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी।
तुझे ढूंढ लिया, तेरे बाकी साथियों को भी ढूंढ लेंगे।
93 में 1 टन RDX आया था, जिसमें से सिर्फ 400 किलो इस्तेमाल हुआ और पूरा मुंबई हिल गया। 600 किलो आज भी कई दफन है। हिंदुस्तान ने मेरी किस्मत बदली, अब मैं हिंदुस्तान की किस्मत पलट दूंगा। मेरे बच्चे, बीवी, अब्बू को जिंदा चला दिया उन लोगों ने।
हाँ, मानता हूँ कि तुम्हारे साथ जो कुछ भी हुआ वो गलत था, लेकिन तुमने भी तो सैकड़ों मासूमों की जानें ले ली, उसका क्या?
The idea is none of us speak Urdu. That's the first idea. The second idea, and I didn't say this earlier, the idea that this is being shown, it has Arabic in it, has to do possibly with the fact that in a lot of countries, particularly the UAE, they have a lot of Indian people who work in the UAE, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and let's say that most of them live extremely hard lives doing construction for being grossly underpaid, getting the money and sending it back. That's a whole nother thing about how they exploit it. But you can look at this film and go, wait a minute, you're showing this film to people who are already oppressed and saying you can make a decision and you have an opportunity to oppress just like we do. So let me break this down. In India, and I'm not India, never been to India, but I have been a minority and continue to be a minority in the United States. India, like the United States in particular, has a very, very precarious history of how they deal with people who are minorities. A, because they need minorities to make this whole thing justified. And B, the relationship of minorities to the world is much larger than the people of the oppressors. Oppressors don't have relationships with the world. I had something happen years ago. I was out, I think it was in Nebraska or something. I was out with a friend. We were doing a comedy show. And what happened was guys kind of walked in and they saw me, and we're in this weird part of Nebraska, and the guys like talking loud, like, what's up, bro? Like, not directly to me, but to another white person, like they're mocking black people. And there's about 6 of them. What's up, bro? What's happening, my man? Whoop, 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 whoop. And I looked around. I'm like, why is this white man acting like that? And I'm clearly going, he's acting this way because he feels like he has an audience that will, one, deem what he's doing is acceptable. And number two, if it jumps off, they got numbers on your boy Preach. So I'm sitting here with one other black guy and a white guy, and they nervous because they don't know which way the black Muslim's going to roll. I might stand up and start doing my Malcolm X thing. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. And so what was interesting was that group was waiting for my response too, thinking that the deck was stacked against me because they had more people. I learned from some of the best. I learned from Mr. Dick Gregory. I said, he said, don't let a fool have a conversation with other fools. You must learn how to creatively interrupt. And so I walked over to him and I said, excuse me. And I didn't say what he was saying. I said, can you keep it down? I said, we're having a conversation. He said, a conversation about what? I said, we're having a conversation about white boys trying to talk like black boys and making a fool of their damn selves. Now, he was shocked. Number one, I came over and dressed him. Number two, even his guys were looking around like you were kind of making a fool of yourself. But number three, I said it loud enough so everybody could hear that we ain't trying to have that. And in that case, creativity won out. But in the case of this film, creativity is not the thing that you're looking at. And it's always interested me, some of my Indian brothers and sisters, how a whole line could be Urdu and they can find that one word, blast, sleeper cell, train, locomotive, Negro, bingo. I mean, I don't know how it works. I mean, and sadly, that's how you can follow this film. Boom. I don't even know if that's a word in Urdu. Boom. But they can do it in Urdu. You don't understand. If it's 20 words, you don't understand 20 words. But, you get to that 19th and they'll give you the 20th in English. That's a whole nother story. But my point here, brothers and sisters, is this does follow a pattern. And when I say it follows a pattern, it is something like I just told you about. The guy at that mall in Nebraska. They are trying to test the waters. I would even go as far as saying that this is a test, brothers and sisters, for a run-up to the midterm elections in 2022. I believe that the idea of Trump becoming president will fade because he has a lot of legal issues. But you still have people who are benefiting off of that. And the idea that, yes, CARE would talk about this thing. They would play this, they would post this young lady's op-ed. It's not enough. It's not enough. I read the notes from the director, and the director had an interesting perspective. Just walk with me on this. The director of this film had a very interesting perspective. And essentially, he doubled down. He said, essentially, when I made films where the protagonists, the bad guys, were Hindu, nobody said anything. He said, so we're talking about sleeper cells and terrorists and things like that. He goes, so why should people be worried that the people who are protagonists are going to be portrayed as Muslim? And I'm like, that's the problem. That's the issue. You just made the point that everyone else is saying. You're perpetuating an image. And while you call it entertainment, some things are not entertainment, brothers and sisters. Some things are not entertainment. People are very strategic. People are very intentional. And some people are very, very diabolical in how they use entertainment. We've talked about examples of how people use cartoons to shape the narrative of how Jews look heading up to the Holocaust and all these things and black people with watermelons and pickaninnies and things like that. We've talked about all that stuff. There's no comedian in the world who hasn't heard, a racial joke, a cultural joke. It's just whether we choose to repeat it or whatever. My point is, brothers and sisters, that the intentionality of this film in this country at the theater right down the street from me bears two things. Number one, it is divisive. It's very divisive. Here in the United States, we need to stand up and say that theater needs to remove that film. and be able to point to the fact that that film is causing so many problems over in India in terms of anti-Muslim behavior. It's number one. Number two is that film is here based on the fact that we still deal with a high level of anti-Black racism. And so it serves two worlds, if you will. One, to bring that message over in, and two, to mute the other message. Because if you're talking about one, and here's the thing about America, if I could say America, the oppressor is not good at multitasking, meaning they will drive a narrative into the ground and then even deeper. My point, brothers and sisters, is can we really look at this at the front end of it and come up with a strategy and say, I'm going to deal with that? Can we get on our social media and stop talking about ourselves and start talking about the ramifications of this film? And I would challenge my African-American brothers and sisters to do not wait for people to stand up and talk about us anti-Muslim. We are the folks that frame popular culture. We have a responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to step out front and say that we don't want this here. And if we say we don't want this here, people will listen. I've always conjectured, people talk about why does Islam always last in the African-American community? Why? Why did it always last? I'm going to tell you why. Because there's strong affinity groups outside of Black Muslims. You have Black people that love Islam and love people, particularly Black people who practice Islam. Large public icons in history have been Muslim. And you have, like I said, you have a demographic that has strong empathy towards Muslims because Islam and African Americans have somehow framed a way, along with Christianity and Black theology, have framed a way where we have a survival narrative. That song that says we're not supposed to be here anyway, but while we're here, let's just go on and do the damn thing. Let's raise ruckus. Let's ask for what we want. 40 acres and more, whatever you want, whatever we're feeling, we're going to express ourselves because we are divine in being here right now. The other thing is, and I've said this, in terms of Black culture and Islam, and I'm going to wrap up here in a minute, but in terms of Black culture and Islam, you know what's really, really interesting? I'll tell you what's interesting. It's the fact that it's been able to hold a very, very sacred place in African-American communities, particularly in the church, particularly in the religious community. I've always said that if a rapper, a top rapper came out with a song that said F Islam and it had a good beat and it went number one for 13 weeks, we all in trouble. Because it speaks literally to the fragility of how we are in our society. Now, I'm going to get ready to get out of here. You guys have been great. But I want you to think about and look in your newspapers. Look in your newspapers and see if this film, Suryavashi, is showing in your theater. I know it's showing around the corner in my theater. Look and see if it's in your theater. Look and see if it's in your community. Because you know what? It's almost like having a sleeper cell. The film is a sleeper cell. It informs, infiltrates, and again, brings toxicity to our communities. So think about that. All right, that's it for me. So let's go ahead and wrap up. I appreciate you guys coming on. As always, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. We want to give a shout out to BeFinancialIndependent.com. Again, that's BeFinancialIndependent.com. Of course, if you don't want to go to the website, just call 1-888-496-6845. Again, that's 1-888-496-6845. And on the flip side, if you're trying to work on your academic side, trying to broaden your intellectual capacity, you got to check out Bayan Islamic Graduate School. Again, that's Bayan Islamic Graduate School. You can go to bayanonline.org. Again, that's bayanonline.org, offering courses in Islamic leadership, Islamic studies, Islamic education, and of course, brothers and sisters, one of the premier programs, hear me now, premier programs for Muslim chaplaincy. Of course, their Master's of Divinity with a focus on Muslim chaplaincy. You need to check that out. Now, listen, you guys have been great. I'm going to get out of here. I was a little bit tired today. Thank you so much for bearing with me. But I think the thing also, brothers and sisters, is let's start thinking about things that we see around us, because I believe that makes a much stronger conversation for what we're trying to do moving forward. I'm Free Jamal. See you tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The Shout Out Show. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Well, team, we've come to the end of yet another show. And I have to say, I had a good time, and I hope that you had a good time as well. Listen, at this part of the show, we have no more show. I could literally sing a song saying we have no more show. However, to spare all of us that embarrassment and chaos, I'm just going to say, please join us tomorrow here on the Shout Out Show, Monday through Thursdays, and every first Saturday, we do our Saturday Spotlight. Here we are again, 5 to 5:30 on the Central Time. And of course, we're going to do our rebroadcasts at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock p.m. And of course, that would be 6 o'clock on the West Coast. So, time for you to go, because it's time for me to go. I think I will do that song. Thank you for coming to the show. Thank you for coming to the show. That's all the lyrics I wrote. But you get the idea. See you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum. Shout out.